Welcome to the docket presented by Defense Diary. Sorry for that little glitch. I am, however, live this time, so that's a good start. I'm Bob Motta. I'm your host, and we're going to give you just facts. And we're jumping into part 5 of the continuing saga of Bill Dorsch and I finding additional victims of John Wayne Gacy. Tonight, we're pretty excited. As you guys know, Bill has been digging into this case for 20 plus years. And during that time, he's done so much work. And tonight we're going to watch some of that work. And these are actual interviews that Bill has done with people that seen things, frankly. I don't want to give any spoilers in terms of what they've seen. But while I've got Bill sitting back there, I'm going to bring him on out so we can say hello. William.
Hey. Hello, everyone.
How are you, my friend?
Well, for 3 a.m, I'm pretty good.
Do you have your nightgown there?
This is my PJ top. Yes. I'm ready, and I will return after this to bed.
Yeah, for some reason I could see you like wearing a kerchief and like a nightgown, like the dude in
No, I got a bottom pants on there.
All right, so we got you up in the middle of the night again. Thank you much for doing that, Bill. I don't think people realize. People are like, wait, was Bill wearing a robe? I'm like, yeah, it's 3 a.m. where he is.
Yeah.
So it's like, for all of our friends that are staying up late and tuning in from parts unknown on the other side of the world, Bill's with you. He's over there in Europe. So he's feeling your pain. But Bill, what we're going to do tonight, I'm very excited about it. And you had hooked up me going on News Nation last night, which I did. They were very excited to hear about it as well. I told them all about what we're doing. I told them that we were going to be having this episode tonight. But basically, why don't you explain to the folks what we're going to be seeing? We're going to be watching a couple of interviews that you did with a couple of different people. Why don't you just give kind of a little bit of an intro of these clips?
Okay, there's a total of 5 interviews that we have. And I don't know if we're going to get through all of them tonight, Bob. But what I want to make sure people understand is when you're an investigator, you go out to a scene and you search for witnesses and victims. And in a homicide, of course, the victim's deceased, so you need your witnesses. They're important because they're going to give you information. That information we take back, we record on our notepad, take it back to our office, and hours later, we're typing it into a report. And then a year or so later, we're in a courtroom and we're on the witness stand and we're testifying. Now, that's not as much of a value having me testify as it is to have the actual witness there so the jury can see them. And tonight, the viewers are the jury. They're going to be able to look directly into the face of the people that I interviewed. All right. And they're going to be able to assess the information and make decisions about the quality of the witness and the information. All right. I want to point out to people, I gave the information about the building on Miami Avenue within days or weeks, or less than a week, I'm certain, to the sheriff's department, trusting that they would interview people. Later, in 1998, for the very first time when we're doing this, getting ready for the first search, I gave them the contact information for Lynn Musinski and Bruno Musinski and no one else, because I didn't know. I didn't go out and do the police job. I didn't go interview, knock on doors and ask people to talk to me. I expected that they did that. When I learned that they didn't, then in 2011, I went out and I found the witnesses. I went canvassing door to door and relocated people who had moved and interviewed them. And then I presented their affidavits and their recorded video information to the Cook County Sheriff's Department. I gave it to them. I met with them for the first time in June of 2011. Gave them the information, talked to these people. They have important information for you. And I expected that they would be doing that. It took them 13 months before they actually did meet with the victims. I mean, with the witnesses. 13 months later.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yes.
Well, I
All right.
mean, it's insane until you realize that they just didn't want any more bodies.
Oh,
You know,
totally.
and then you understand why they didn't do anything.
Well, yeah, and in the beginning, that's all I had was I had a building, witnesses, and I expected they would do their job. But when they didn't do their job, I had to go out and find these people. And thank God I did, because of the 5 witnesses, 2 of them are now deceased. Okay. And age is a factor in when you're going to trial and stuff like that, getting your witnesses into the courtroom. And that's actually why I wrote the book, Bob, because, I have all this information. I can leave it sitting on my desk. I can pass away. Nobody's ever going to hear it. So I decided I got to do this. All right. So today you're going to start with the first witness is Bruno Musinski, and he is a retired Chicago not a homicide detective, Chicago police officer. He's now deceased, but he lived in the basement apartment with his wife, Lynn. Later, they divorced. Okay. But I have Bruno starting off, and then after him will be John Ignafo Jr., and he is important, and you'll see that. And then Mike Nelson.
Yeah, we'll probably get through 2 tonight. We'll probably do 2
Okay.
tonight and maybe 3 on the next one. Because
Yeah.
I think Bruno's about 22, and I think Ignafo's about the same, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Actually.
And I'm so happy, Bob, that I got you out there to meet some of these witnesses.
Yeah, me too.
Face to face, and that's important. Like I say to your viewers tonight, they're able to look into the eyes and hear directly the conversation that I had with them, and it's important. So
I agree.
Let's roll.
Let's go, man. All right. So without further ado, let's get the video with Bruno rolling.
I've known Bruno since grammar school, actually. I knew his wife then. And her name was Lynn Musinski at the time when they married. And Bruno, coincidentally, was, like me, a Chicago police officer his entire career. He's now retired. Bruno, it's going back in time. Let's see. Now you're how old are you now?
70.
You're 70 years old. So you were born in what year?
July 41.
Okay. Now, you're still living in Chicago. You're a lifelong resident of the city of Chicago.
Correct.
And you grew up in the Northwest Side. Where did you go to grammar school?
St. Tarcissus.
So that would have been right where? Near what? The school was what on? I don't remember the street, but was that right near Austin and Milwaukee?
Austin and Milwaukee. Ardmore.
Ardmore is the street.
Ardmore.
You remember it and I didn't. And we both graduated from the same school.
Right.
So we all live close together. All right. I knew you before you married Lynn. And after I married, and I was a policeman, I moved into an apartment building on Elston, just several feet away from Miami.
Right.
And where were you living back in 1973, 74?
On Marmora, 5700 block of Marmora.
No, that's where you moved from Miami. But when you were married to Lynn, when you first were married to Lynn, what was the address you were living at?
Bill, are you leading the witness there?
Miami.
Right. And you and Lynn moved in there as a young married couple.
There?
And you moved in there about what year?
Well, it was before.
Time is a factor, Bob, in interviews.
My daughter was born in 67, 65, 66.
Okay. And I remember you moved out of there and moved over to Marmora. And one of the reasons I remember that, Bruno, is because I helped you move.
Right.
Yeah.
You did. Now to think of it, you did.
Yeah, you and Lynn were living in the basement apartment of that apartment building at 6100 Miami.
Right.
So you moved out of there about what year? Do you recall?
It had to be maybe 70, no, not that early. Maybe 73, 74.
Okay. It could have been a little later maybe too.
It could have been a little bit later. Yeah.
All right, because I know I didn't meet you and work with you on a police department until about 74. And that's when I moved into the apartment building on Elston. So that's how I knew you were living there. Up until then, I didn't even know you were living in the Miami address. So you were there definitely in 74. And I remember helping you move.
Right.
When you were working, when you and Lynn were living there was a maintenance man for that building, right?
Yes.
And do you remember his name?
John Gacy.
Are we talking about the infamous John Gacy, the one who's killed 33 young boys?
Yes, we are.
And during that time, did you have many conversations with him?
Well, I had a few.
Mm-hmm.
I met him when he first started there.
Okay.
And yeah, we talked for a while. And he looked like an okay guy.
And was he ever in your basement apartment? Do you remember?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was when he was first started there.
Okay, and he would join you. And did he during the time he was there while you were living there, that's before you moved, did he ever have young boys there too, working around the building with him?
I vaguely remember he had a couple times he had young boys working with him.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of work he did at the building as a maintenance man?
He did the groundwork over there. He planted new shrubbery and flowers and grass work. And he also put a new pavement on the rear parking lot.
You mean blacktop?
Blacktop, right.
Okay. Do you remember if he did any concrete work inside the building?
Not that I remember. Not that I remember.
Okay. What about, let me ask you this. Was there anything unusual about the way that the groundwork was done? Well,
the way he did it, it was just in patches. Just a hole here, a hole there. He even put bushes by the front window, all the way across.
So when you're talking about doing some planting and you're going to put a bush in, you dig a hole. Digging holes is hard work.
Yes.
So you don't really dig much bigger than you need.
Correct.
But was anything unusual about the holes that he dug?
They were deep.
They were deep?
Yes.
Were they bigger than necessary to plant a flower or a bush?
Oh, yes.
Now you're an older person as I am, and during my lifetime, I know I've gone to several funerals and such and been at graveside ceremonies. Would you say that the holes that were dug were significantly larger than just a planting hole?
Oh, yes.
Would they be as big as a trench? Describe it as a trench and not just a hole?
Yeah, it was like a trench. Yes, it was.
And you said there'd be numerous holes. These would be done at the same time or different times?
Different times, because he was always digging there, digging holes for something.
Uh-huh. And what was unusual about the holes once dug? I mean, most people, when they are doing landscape, they dig a hole, they've probably already purchased the plant or bush and they put it right in and fill the ground in.
Correct.
Was that done here?
In certain spots it was, like in front of our picture window in the living room. He dug a trench, planted some bushes, and then filled the hole up with dirt.
Okay. Were any of those holes left open for a period of time before they were filled?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And was that kind of unusual, did you think?
Very, very unusual.
Do you know where those trenches were dug?
I know there was one in front of our picture window in the living room, and then there were various holes on the grounds of the building.
Were they in the middle of the lawn or were they more towards the sidewalks?
I can't. It's been so long, I can't pinpoint it now.
Okay. But the holes, were they all pretty much the same as far as depth and size?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And behind you was a landscape company across the alley, right?
Yeah, Corrado's Landscape Company.
Right. And that was there, and that was a place where many of the neighbors for many years would go and pick up their shrubberies, flowers, and even black dirt and stone, right?
Correct.
Did you ever do any business there? Probably not when you lived in the apartment, but maybe later when you moved.
Well, later on when I moved, when I bought my first house, we went there and we got flowers for the yard and everything.
All right. Do you remember at times, and we've talked about this, you lived in a basement apartment.
Right, they call it a garden apartment.
And so you're at basically below, little below ground level, and your
Correct.
windows are almost at ground level.
Correct.
And across from you, there was not another apartment, but like a common use area for the apartment building?
You're talking about the parking lot area?
No, inside the building. Across from you, across from your apartment. Like the laundry room and storage area?
Oh, yeah, that, right. That comes out through the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And do you remember sometimes being awakened in the middle of the night, early morning hours by some noise?
Yeah, it was coming from that area, from the laundry room. And I found out it was Gacy down in there.
And he didn't live there.
No, he didn't. He lived in Norwood Park someplace.
Did you think he was curious that why would he be here in the early morning or hours?
Yeah, it was very curious.
And how did you know it was him? Did you ever get up and say, hey, John, or just look out and see his vehicle?
No, but I just got the idea that it was him. He's the only one other than the residents that had a key for the place.
Mm-hmm. The holes that were dug again, that sometimes remain open for periods of time. What was the longest that you ever recall a hole being left open?
Oh,
I know it's a long time ago.
yeah, a long time ago, but maybe a day or two, maybe 3 days. But they were open for a couple of days.
And do you remember seeing the holes ever being filled in? Seeing anybody working to fill the hole?
No.
So then the holes would get filled in though, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah. Eventually they would be filled in.
So when were they filled in? During the daytime or nighttime?
I can't, I don't know when. It'd have to be at the nighttime because we got up in the morning and some of the holes were filled.
Okay. Under the back stairs, the leading to the basement area,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember any concrete work done under the stairs there?
No, not under the stairs, no.
Okay. Now, John Wayne Gacy got arrested in December of 1978, and you're an experienced Chicago policeman already working for about 8 years.
Right.
But you had moved from the Miami address.
Mm-hmm.
Were you following the news with John Gacy on TV every day?
Yes, I was.
And you were seeing what everybody else was seeing, that there was a significant amount of bodies that were found buried under his home.
Right.
Did at some point you and Lynn talk, and other residents, or you weren't living there anymore, but just you and Lynn, did you talk about what could be at the Miami building?
Yes, we did.
And what was the conversation about?
Conversation was about all these holes that he dug, and they were big enough to hold bodies. So I figured that he must have buried some of them on the Miami property.
Well, okay, so you're a policeman, though. You're a little different than the average citizen. You know where to take information like that.
Oh, yes.
So knowing that they're digging up bodies in the suburbs and having this knowledge of what he did at the Miami apartment and thinking that something was wrong, did you contact anybody?
Yes, I did. I contacted the Area 5 Detective Division.
All right. And you identified yourself, of course.
Correct.
And what did you tell them?
I told them that I knew Gacy and what he was going on around the property, and I understand that they were looking for more bodies. They didn't have them all. And when I told the detective about that, he says, "No, Bruno, we don't want any more bodies." And I guess eventually they went over there and checked it out.
Meaning they didn't talk to you, though, did they?
No.
Okay. How do you know if they checked it out?
I heard that from you, I think. Didn't I?
No, they never checked it out.
They never checked it out.
Right.
They do the scan with the.
Oh, we checked it out, but that was in 1998. You reported in 1978. So they went there in 98, but that was 20 years later. When you gave the information, it was at Gacy's time of Gacy's arrest.
Right.
Okay. But the detective told you, Bruno, thank you for the information, basically, but we don't
want any more bodies.
We don't want any more bodies. Okay. And even though you're a policeman, what was your feeling about that comment by them?
I was a little taken aback about it because I figured that they're looking for more bodies. They're going to look everywhere. They dug up, 28, 29 by his house, and they were short some bodies because they were looking for missing persons. And why didn't they go over to Miami and check it out?
Okay. But you felt as a policeman, you'd at least done your duty and passed the information on.
Exactly. That's just the way I felt it.
All right, Bruno, I thank you very much for the information you've given me. And this concludes our interview. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's an interesting one, man.
Yeah.
So
see, let
talk
about time and the health of your witnesses can be very important. All right. The time from the event to the time they testify in a courtroom, their health can come into play. Sadly, at the time, Bruno, who was a great guy, and I knew him since I was a child. We grew up a little over a block away from each other. But at the time of this interview, he was suffering from the onset of dementia from Alzheimer's. And sadly, he's passed. So, I don't recall. I couldn't remember the address of the school where I grew up, that I went to, but he remembered it. And
it is 78. Correct.
Yeah.
But after
sorry.
So I mean,
Next
time has a big factor when you're interviewing people. And I'm doing this. It should have been done by law enforcement. All right. But they didn't want to do it, Bob. You and I both know that. And people are going to see that again. Now, about the bushes in front of his window, he recalled, I think he said that they were filled in right away. That was important.
Yeah.
That Gacy would plant bushes in front of that window right away because he wants to block the view from the window of that front yard where the bodies were being buried.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and the landscape company, Corrados, that he mentioned across the alley, that too was important because there's a witness one time, I remember the interview where he said that Gacy would steal the shrubbery from a landscape company, which he didn't know the name, but I surmised that it has to be Corrados because it was there. I mean, I knew it so well. You could walk right in from the alley. There was no fence in the back, and you could just walk across the alley with the product you stole. You could even get lime there,
Yeah.
on the property, which you use to fill in to kill the smell of a deceased person.
Which
yeah.
probably is where Gacy got all the lime that he had Cram and Rossi spread down the 900.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I found Bruno very compelling. I mean, he's an old guy, and it's been 20 plus years when you're doing that, and he remembers the important stuff.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Might not remember some of the details when you're grilling him under the intense light. Did you have that little spotlight on him? That light you swing back?
No, that was just the house lighting. I don't have this type of equipment.
Bill. All right. So our next witness is significantly younger. All right. And he had a significantly different experience with Gacy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about John before we start the clip?
John Jr., which is who you're going to see first, he lived with his family across the street, right across the street from the Miami Avenue apartment. The Miami Avenue part was on the northwest side. They were on the northeast side. And they lived on the first floor of the apartment building. And from where they lived, they could see all the way across and see the entire front of the property and all the way to the parking lot area where it began in the back and the entry to the rear gangway. They were important. I didn't know. I never interviewed them. Like I said, I gave the police. I thought the police were going to interview people, do their canvas. When I found out they didn't. But so many years later, when I interviewed him, 30 years later, is when I found John Jr. All right. Because now I saw the need after Mrs. Marino convinced me that there was some more hidden information out there. And I started my own search. But they never canvassed the area. If they had canvassed, they would have talked to people like John Jr., the Nelsons, and so forth.
Yeah.
And so the interview, and I'm so glad you met with him too.
Yeah.
And years later now, I interviewed him in 2011. Then we went back last year and we met with him again. So we can take it there. He'll tell you he was a young kid, but boy, I'll tell you, what you're going to hear from this kid is going to curl your toes, man.
Yeah, for sure. And before we jump into this interview, I've seen a couple comments in the chat. No, law enforcement is not involved in investigating this. This is the entire point of what Bill and I are doing.
Right.
Chicago police and Cook County never truly investigated anything beyond the house and the river in terms of looking for additional Gacy victims. That's the entire point of what Bill and I are doing.
Yeah. And there's no better proof of that than in the appendix of my book, when there's a response from a FOIA request that I made to the sheriff's department. I did it for Cook County, for Chicago police also, and the state's attorney. But sheriff's department said, we were not the primary investigative agency. We were only there to assist the Splains who made the arrest.
Passing the
That's not true. And you know that. Everybody knows that. We all watch the news. Okay. And then they went on to say that when I pressed them more for information about the site, I want to see what work you did do with the interviews of these people, families of the victims. And they said, well, we didn't do any of that. That wasn't our responsibility. I wanted reports. They said, well, I can't give you reports because everything we got from other agencies was verbal. So they wrote nothing down.
Right.
You know, how do you present your investigative information in a courtroom?
Writing.
Yeah.
Or testimony, one of the two.
Yes. Yes.
And neither one was available because they didn't do any work. You know, and it's like, I don't know if Joe Jacalone's still in here, but Joe's a former NYPD cop. I've told you about him. I want to get you guys on together. Joe's like knee deep in the Rex Huerman thing. Now I know you're over in Europe, but you know, he's the suspected Gilgo Beach killer, potentially the Long Island serial killer, or, you know, they're trying to put more bodies on him. The point of me bringing it up is that what you see going on, or at least what you did see up until recently, and I'm hoping it's still going on, was that they were trying to make connections with additional victims with Huerman. And like the contrast of that investigation and what they're doing in terms of trying to find the additional victims, trying to attach them to him actively, is the diametric opposite of what happened with the Chicago police and Cook County Sheriff's Police. They did nothing, zero. Like the least that they could do in terms of getting away with it without getting grilled completely. Like I said on the last live, the only person I ever saw mention it, like at the time, was Jay Levine. Did one like if you Google it, Google like cops not doing the job back in 78 after Gacy's arrest, and there's one YouTube video of an old news clip of Jay Levine blasting on them, you know, talking about the things that I talk about in my podcast, the first season, how they didn't do anything when he was active at all, and how they didn't do anything after. And that's what Levine starts looking at, like the concept of them not doing what we are actually doing now. We're doing the job that the police should have done back then, and we're at a huge disadvantage because 40 plus years has passed, you know, but that's not stopping us, because you and I don't give a shit how long's passed, because every victim that could be a victim of Gacy deserves their name back, and their families deserve closure. And we're going to see it through to the end, man. And if we find one victim, it's a huge, huge win for us. And it's a bigger win for that victim getting their name back. And it's a bigger victim for the family getting closure. You know, I mean, to me, you know, it's just so important. It's important work. It's like, it's one of the main reasons I got into this. You know, I mean, victim advocacy is exceptionally important to me. And, you know, like you didn't get to see the interview last night, Bill, but, you know, I told her, I said, look, the irony of the fact that my father defended the monster and I'm now out here in the streets, boots on the ground, going to be digging holes, trying to find the victims that went unclaimed, you know, is super ironic, but, you know, I'm here for it. And we're going to get the job done, man. I mean, we're going to find out one way or another.
Right.
Nothing is stopping that from happening. So, all right, enough of me yammering. Let's get to John Agnafo. See what he has to say. All right. Let's share that out.
Arrested you, even though Lynn and Bruno moved, your mother and father still remain good friends with them.
Correct.
So you would visit with them?
Yes.
And you were present during those conversations that they had when the Gacy building came up?
Yes.
And what were some of the conversations that you heard them talking about?
Just that how it was really weird, the stuff he did, and that now that it had passed and that he was arrested for it, that they knew there was bodies there. They knew there was something there just because of his actions.
Did you ever hear your mother or that Bruno or Lynn or your father even say that they called the police to tell them to look at that location?
Yes. I had a discussion with my mother when I got older, and she had told me that the week he was arrested, she called and says, you know what, he works at this building right across the street from us, and he has done odd things at night. And she thought it was going to be handled, and then nothing ever happened.
Were you present during a conversation where Lynn was talking to your mother about concrete work done in the basement?
Yeah, as I got older, just from running in, we would talk about different things being done. And that would come up, and Lynn's would always be surprised that nothing was done. And, you know, some of it I heard before from my mom, but then having Lynn talking about it too, I mean, it's just two same things.
Was one of the things that was mentioned was that Lynn had told your mother, or you were present when she told your mother, that not only was she seeing work done in the concrete, but she was amazed at how fast the work was done by Gacy.
Yes, it's almost like he would do it overnight, and all of a sudden it would be done. You know, something that you would think would take you a few days to do, he could do in a day.
And were you aware of bushes being taken out on the property?
Yes.
And do you remember where they were?
There were bushes that were right in front of the 2-bay windows and the front side of the house. There were some bushes that were on the corner that was like on the front side of the house towards the parking lot area. Those were gone. And for the most part, the whole front end was basically just a lawn. I mean, there was very little shrubbery around the outside.
John, we're talking about 31 years ago, and you were younger at the time. So maybe it's, to the best of your recollection, do you have any idea about how many different holes you saw in the front?
You know what? I had to have been at the different times, at least a dozen, lining both sides.
Would that be along the building and along Elston and along Miami?
Along Elston and along Miami.
And these were not just holes.
No, because now that I'm older and I think about it, they were grave size. Because when I was 8, 9 years old and I'm playing in a trench, to me, you know, it's big. But as you get older and unfortunately you attend graveside ceremonies or you have to bury your loved ones.
But when you were a kid, you could get a couple people inside that trench?
Yes. Yeah. We get 3 people inside the trench.
Okay, John. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. 30 years is a long time. Glad to see you doing well.
Yes, it is.
And thank you for your help. And that ends this interview. Thank you.
Bob, I think you missed the first portion of it, though, of that interview.
I don't think so. Was it?
Yeah, there was a lot more from the beginning.
Oh, because it's clipped together like this. All right, hold on. Let me check. Let me see what's up. Because it went. Let's see. It went. I got a 14-second one, which clearly isn't anything. And then I've got, let me see if this one is John. Because all your interviews are about 22 minutes. You're like the 22
Arrested in
minutes.
78.
Correct.
But after he
Yeah.
arrested you,
Let me see. I'm gonna just fast forward. Yeah,
In the
see,
range of
it's
arrested
going.
in 78.
It's going right into that, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. I don't. Maybe we didn't send it right. But there was more. But I think what we got out there already shows some important information.
Do you want to go into any of the other ones?
Yeah. Mike Nelson is going to be very factual because he was hired by Gacy to work on the property.
Okay.
So his information, I didn't know about it until 1998 when his parents told me, talk to my son. He worked there. So this is what he had to say.
All right. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, you want to do just Nelson?
Okay. Yeah, he didn't give me any names. Like it's.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Your guy.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. So I think this is gonna be John. All right. And I think that was like 3 minutes something.
Yeah, because his real conversation is about 15 minutes. So
And thank you for your
Yeah, we must have missed.
okay, here's Nelson.
Yeah.
the 8th. And I'm not going to mention your place of work, but I'm sitting here and I'm in Bill Dorsch interviewing Mike Nelson. And I'm here because at one time, Mike was a neighbor of mine in Chicago. He lived in a house on Miami, and I lived directly across the alley from Mike in an apartment building. And I came to know Mike and his brother and his family. And years ago in 1998, there was a reported dig at the building across the street at 6100 and 6011 West Miami Avenue. And that was a location that I reported to the police as being a location where it's believed that bodies might be buried. Mike Nelson, at the time, I didn't know at the time until I met him back in 98, told me that he worked for John Gacy. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Actually, I'm going to say it was probably in the range of, I think I started there probably 1969 to 70 in that range. And I worked there probably until about 1977. So I would have been about 10, 11 years old. So I was like 17 or 18 years old. I believe that he wasn't the owner until halfway through that. I don't know the.
Well, actually,
the
he never became.
I'm sorry, the maintenance.
Yeah.
Person handling maintenance of the building.
So he wasn't the maintenance man back in 1969 or 70, but.
Right. So somebody else from that apartment, and to tell you the truth, I don't recall who. I was 10, 11 years old. Okay. They knew that I had a reputation of being the lawnmower maintenance boy of the area. I probably mowed lawns and washed windows on 8, 10, 12 different residential, properties. And so they had asked if I would be willing to do some work at that apartment. And so was
this the original owners of the place?
Yeah, this would have been whoever back in 69 or 70.
Basil Pecious was the name, but you don't recall that name. So it wasn't John Gacy to first engage you in that?
That's correct.
Gacy came in sometime after that, say in the 71, 72?
I can't recall exactly when.
Because you said, because he didn't come to Chicago in 71.
Okay.
So at that time, he became the maintenance man, and he would be then aware of your involvement at the building.
I had done like a few things for them. I think I was just mowing some lawn, maybe shoveling some snow. And then I was approached, I didn't know his name at the time, but by John Gacy. And when he came over and he asked if I would, continue mowing the lawn and shoveling snow as needed. And he also asked me to do other jobs then too. He had asked that the people who lived on I guess it'd be first and second floors, they would take their trash and their little metal cans that were outside their door, and he'd put it in there. And so he asked me on trash day or before trash day every day, I would go up and walk to different porches and collect the trash and bring it down to the main dumpster so that the tenants wouldn't have to bring the trash down
at the
there.
back of the by the
It was
alley?
on a back porch area. Well, it was back. The back of the property goes to another residential property, but the dumpster was in the triangular parking lot that was over by the alley.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, the dumpster was like right along
The back
a
of the
fence
building.
here by the neighbor's garage,
Mhm.
right before you got to the alley on the parking lot. And so each week I'd go up there and empty the cans and bring garbage down and put them in.
So you were about
The
how old
dumpster.
do you think when you met Gacy?
Well, I probably would have been about 12 years old, I guess,
And
in that range.
you would have worked with him while Lynn and Bruno Musinski were in the apartment?
Yeah, they were in a basement, I believe. Basement apartment, weren't they?
Yes. Did you know who moved in? Did you know that Gacy's mother moved in after they moved out?
Well, Gacy's mother moved in, if I recall, one of the upper apartments on the west side, I guess it would be.
She actually moved into the basement
Did she
after
move around?
Bruno.
Okay. And I remember, though, that's who I would a lot of times get paid from, was that individual. Okay.
So, okay.
In other words, I don't know who gave her the money, if it was her money, if John gave her, whoever, but that's who, when I was done with things, that's,
Mhm. But at times
That's
before she moved in, did you get paid by Gacy himself?
well, I got paid. There was times I got paid by Gacy himself.
Okay.
Yeah. If he was there.
Yeah.
If he was there, I get paid. And he was there fairly often.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what kind of work did you see him doing around there?
well, the big one that I remember is the parking lot. I was collecting the trash one day, going up and down the stairs, and I came down with the bags. And as you come down the bags, you go along the sidewalk heading towards the alley, and there's a gate right before you get to the on a cyclone fence. There's a gate right, and as I got to the gate, Gacy was standing with his back to the other fence by the garage, and he had a shovel in one hand, and his arm was up on I can picture this like it was yesterday, and his arm was up on the fence, and he knew me by name. Oh, Mike, he goes, we're digging, we're blacktopping the parking lot. He goes, so you're gonna have to take all the trash and go around the apartment building and come down the sidewalk and get the dumpsters from the alley side or whatever. And I kind of took a look at what they were doing, and of course naturally as I walked around with the trash, I looked what they were doing before I went
You
back.
say they were doing. Does that mean there was some
There
other
was
people?
one other person there that I can recall.
Do you remember who that was?
I don't
Was it
recall who it
a
was.
younger person?
A younger person, and if I picture him correct, and I'm not trying to be whatever, politically incorrect or whatever, but if I remember, he was of Spanish origin or Mexican.
Can you guess or can you recall, I guess is a better word, not guess, but recall about how old you thought that person was?
It was a younger person, so
A little older than you?
I'm going to say maybe 20, somewhere around that range.
Okay.
Older than me, yeah,
Older than you.
but not.
All right. And so what did you, now you know how blacktopping is done.
Mhm.
All right. You've seen it done or maybe had it done. And blacktopping only requires that you have a solid footing. So if you're going to blacktop, you really don't have to dig.
And that's the part I think that hit me as years went on. And I've talked about this, is that, he had dug down, I'm going to say 5 to 6 feet was about what I estimated to be. And it was clean cut digs. I mean, it was like a foundation wall. It was very clean along all three angles. It went all the way to the sidewalk, and I'm going to say maybe a foot or two away from the actual building. And when you think about it now, it's like, well, if you're putting in blacktop, why would you dig 6 feet down? Because now you have a very unstable base. Why wouldn't you just dig 6 or 8 inches down and maintain the solid base behind it?
And so he told you they were going to prepare to dig, and you saw this hole. And how quickly was the blacktopping done?
Well, the thing is, the hole was there, I'm going to say maybe 2 days. I can't recall, a couple days. Okay. And then it was one of those numbers where the next morning it was done. So it was kind of like the hole was there at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening. And the next morning when I'm going to school, it's blacktop.
So
It wasn't just filled, it was done.
it's like overnight almost.
The work would have been done in the nighttime hours. Yes.
Okay.
Because I would go to school at.
And your house is
6:30.
directly across the street.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, there was other work that you told me about. You told me about this actually back in 1998. And at that time, you remember we talked about Bruno and Lynn living there.
Mhm.
You said you had cut the lawn and shoveled snow.
Mhm.
You swept the back porches. You
Yeah.
took out the garbage.
Flush windows.
And that was, you were about 11 to 16-year-old range at the time. And let's talk about the windows in the basement. You've been in the basement laundry area.
Yeah, it was it was kind of an empty basement. It had some washers and dryers along the wall, and I remember there was a wooden staircase.
Was there any
believe.
sheds in the laundry area? Did you remember?
Something tells me I thought there were, but I don't want to test it. But I thought there was some along one wall, but I can't.
Okay.
Can't totally
That
guarantee
would
that.
have been something maybe by apartments, renters for storage.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of apartments have,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's
there
not
was something
common.
unusual about the windows. The windows were not big windows, but they were sort of like
There were
awning
the
windows.
windows that were like 4 foot by 20 inches or something like that, and they were the ones that, if I recall correctly, like cranked out. They would come out on an angle.
Like
And,
they call them an awning.
So, okay.
Window, I think
And they
that's
wouldn't
what-
open all the way. I think they only opened,
Mhm.
12 inches. But I know that there was, I can't recall, 1 or 2 of them along the front side. And, curious kids, you peek through windows, I guess you want to say, while you're playing, whatever. And it was like all of a sudden they were blacked out. You couldn't see in. And I can't recall if it was like a black cardboard or if it was what it was on there, but they were blacked out. And you could no longer see through the windows anymore. And whatever, I mean, I guess I didn't think much of it that time, but now again, sure.
Okay, and also you're aware from your time there that the back of the building had access to the other apartments by a stairwell and stairs leading up the porches and to the apartments.
Rail, yeah.
And to go down to the basement area, you would walk down a few stairs.
It was like 4 or 5 stairs.
And when you got to the bottom there, to the left was an apartment and to the right was a laundry.
If you were facing the back of the building, yes.
Right. Do you recall seeing anything that to you looked like somebody had re-poured concrete in any of that area?
Underneath the one stairwell, they had poured concrete, and it's like it was kind of strange because usually underneath a stairwell you can put like wooden walls. People use it for storage areas, and it was just concreted. And I, again, don't know why that was.
Again, you were a young man at the time, just doing little cleanup work, so you weren't really paying too much attention. So something like that had to really stand out.
Oh yeah.
What about inside? Did you notice anything inside where concrete work was done in the laundry room?
If I remember right, I believe there was a set of stairs in there too that had concrete underneath it.
Okay.
And I'm trying to picture it, but I can't, right now.
Or could that be the front stairs?
It would have been on the same wall it was over on the same wall that was by by Lynn and Bruno's part.
Well, that would be actually outside, not inside the laundry room, wouldn't it?
No, it was inside the basement area.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure about that.
Okay.
Over on the left side as you came in.
Okay.
I don't know if those stairs they probably went to the interior. It would be underneath the stairs, so you probably went up the stairs, because I wouldn't use those stairs. I didn't have interior access to the building.
Okay.
But there were, on the front of the building, there were 2 doors that went to the apartments, okay?
Gotcha.
So I'm guessing, to the best of my knowledge here, that you had your stairs that went from the interior up, but if you would go into the basement, you're underneath those stairs, that area.
Gotcha. Did you ever see John Gacy digging in the basement area or under the stairs?
I did not see him digging.
Okay.
I saw him digging only in the parking lot.
All right. Now, you played on the front lawn.
Yep.
And you played there. You had a brother who was younger than you that was named Brian.
Yep.
Brian's how much younger than you?
He's 3.5 years younger.
3.5 years. Did he have a nickname? I'm trying to think.
Chunky.
Chunky, yes, I remember Chunky. All right. And he would play there. Do you remember the Amato boys?
Joe, Phil, and
Rocky. I know which Joe.
Rocky.
I think they
Rocky.
called Rocky.
no, it was Rocco. Joe, Phil, and
Father
Rocco.
was Rocco.
No, the youngest boy was Rocco.
Okay, then I was right.
They
It
called
is
him,
Rocco.
it was Rocky. I think he had
All right, and they would sometimes play over there with you guys.
Yeah.
And you guys are all friends. And did you know the Ignapo boy?
Cross
All right. So when you played on that front lawn area, it's sort of a large triangle. You played there, as I believe you said, because it was one of the larger lawns.
It was good for ball playing and stuff.
Yeah, so you would throw the ball around and football that. Do you remember seeing anything unusual in the lawns? Did you see any trenches? I mean,
there was a lot of trenches, and it's not just from playing over there. I mowed the lawn along the trenches too, so I was very well knowledgeable of the trenches because I had to watch how I mowed so I wouldn't lose the.
Now, would these
mowing.
trenches all be dug at one time, or would they be done periodically?
There was a couple stages. If I remember correctly, and I know I had the map right here or whatever, but the area that ran basically from the sidewalk in front of the building along Elston Avenue up into the corner of Miami and Elston, that was pretty much one dig, okay? It ended before, there was a big bush area right at Miami and Elston corner.
Right.
I never saw that bush come out, okay? It was there forever, I swear. But that area from that sidewalk along Elston all the way to that bush, if I stand correct, was one trench. Okay, that was one dig. And just off the top of my mind, I would say that trench was probably about 2 foot wide would be my guesstimate, 2+. And it was probably about maybe 4 feet deep would be about my guess.
Did you ever see the trenches being dug?
I can't recall ever seeing.
Did you ever see young boys working with Gacy?
In the parking lot I did. Well, I don't want to say young boy, young men.
Young men.
Yes. Yeah, I saw the one that was about 20 years old. I know.
Okay. Now, in this one picture over here, this is an area that at one time did have a large bush, but you said in that picture you see some white stones. Tell me about how that got there.
Another one that was kind of overnight too. That was the area on the west side of the building, if you want to call it, the far west front, and that was a separate dig. Basically that was dug down again. There's big, huge, I don't know if they were juniper bushes or something there that came out. And again, that particular one did not last long. That was dug and gone. I mean, that was very fast dig and cover. And it amazed me because all of a sudden it was like, wow, there was just a hole there. It's gone. And it's all this, and it was really even thicker white rock than what you see right there. It was like pure white solid. Gravel rock or whatever you want to call it, decorative rock.
So not only did you cut the grass there and shovel the sidewalks there for many years, we're talking 5-6 years, right?
6-7 years, but yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, but you also said that you play sports with the neighborhood boys on the lawns, throw the balls around. And I think you told me that at times you remember having, while playing, you guys had to avoid the holes or be careful for where the holes were.
Especially on this area along the front side, they dug again, stopped before the big bush at the corner, but they dug all the way to the sidewalk along Miami Avenue, that whole long stretch, and that was pretty much like 2 digs, if I recall correct. But those lasted they were there a few weeks. Those trenches.
It's kind of strange that you would dig a hole if you intend to plant and leave them open for so long.
Well, I guess, again, I didn't think about it when I'm 15 years old or whatever, but or at that age I was probably 12, 13, but to us it was a game jumping over the trenches and everything. But yeah, nowadays if you think about it, it's like they was just waiting for somebody to fall into and get hurt. I mean, it was right next to the sidewalk, literally inches.
And another reason you recall the trenches, not only because they're across the street from where you live and you worked there, but you also waited for a bus there too, or got off the bus.
Yeah, all my high school days, I waited for the bus right at the corner there every day. So
that property was almost viewed by you almost daily.
It probably was daily.
Yeah.
So I was out of town for a weekend, but yeah.
Did John Gacy ever make any approaches to you?
No.
Do you remember?
Let's just say not that I recall or that I picked up on.
Did you pick up on?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But you always got paid by him or his mother.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. That's been very helpful. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure meeting with you after all these years. Okay. And we'll end it here. Okay.
That's John Ignacio Sr.
Oh, that's his old man.
Yeah, the John Jr. That's his father.
Okay. So I need people to understand the significance, like this time frame that we're talking about when Gacy was the maintenance man over at the house. And we're talking about it, Miami and Elston, coincides with the period of time that Gacy was married to Carol Hoff, that Gacy had Carol's mother, his mother-in-law, her 2 daughters, and for a period of time, his own mother living in the house with them. Okay. So Gacy divorced Carol in 76. So the prevailing thought had always been that Gacy, we know that he killed Tim McCoy in 72. They were able to put that together in terms of when Tim went missing and when they were able to identify that body. So their estimation was that Gacy began to kill in 72 and that he basically went dormant until 75, which is when John Bukovich was killed. Now, John Bukovich was buried in like the little shed / garage that Gacy dug a hole in there and then paved that over, poured concrete over that. So this time frame that we're talking about, where these witnesses that Bill has interviewed are talking about these trenches being dug, are during this time frame when Gacy had a whole lot of women and children living in his house with them. And
Right.
this is after Carol had complained about the smell of Tim McCoy, which was a learning experience for John. And he went down and said, "Oh, it's a raccoon or whatever. Some kind of animal died under there." And, he went down and laid the concrete, poured the lime, but clearly wasn't burying any bodies down there. Now, Carol left a lot in terms of traveling out of state, because I think her family lived out of state and she'd spend periods of time up there. But the fact of the matter is that we've got witnesses here talking about grave-sized trenches being dug. We've got a witness talking about a grave-size hole being dug in a place where there's no business whatsoever for a hole to ever be dug when you're laying blacktop down. Like there's no explanation for that one at all. Now, when we talked to Ignafo's father, when we went out, and you guys kept shutting him down, I couldn't wait for the old guy to talk. And he talked about that concrete pad that was mentioned here in this interview under the stairs. Because the old timer, he was like, "Well, I didn't understand why they filled that in. It made no sense. It didn't need to be filled in, because basically it was the same thing. The thing got dug out under cover of darkness. It gets filled in the middle of the night."
Right.
And
That came from Nelson's father, not Ignafo's.
Was that Mike Nelson's dad?
No.
So, the kind of significance of that area at the back of the building is that there's a gangway, and Bill has always talked about, what the traffic patterns were like on Miami and Elston back in the early 70s at that hour. And I think Bill always says, "Well, I could put a chair in the middle of the street and sit there for hours and no one would, I'd be undisturbed." So it was not a high traffic area late night hours, so when you're talking about opportunity, it's certainly there. When you're talking about his means, it's certainly there. And he's got his motive always, in terms of getting rid of the bodies. So, this building is not a mystery. Like, this is not a building that has gone under the radar. There's been a couple of things that have been done over there. Bill and I both feel very strongly that the 94 dig was a sham completely, and we know that they only tented one area. And we also know that there were only a couple of cops in there that had no motivation whatsoever to find bodies. And then they excused your GPR guys out of the tent and came out after 15 minutes. And then whatever the feds did, like this thing that they did undercover.
Let me tell you, of importance here is what Nelson said too about where the bodies. Remember, he said the one in the parking lot was just it was right at the edge of the parking lot, right by the sidewalk. Okay. And the wall of the building. And then he said another location where he was digging the trenches were inches away from the sidewalk. Okay, that's important because Gacy did that same system of burial, and he followed the foundation of his home to bury the bodies under his home. And they're always near the foundation wall, not in the middle, because it's easier to keep track of where you're burying if you have this pattern that he was following. Right. Also, it's the Cook County Sheriff, Chicago, and even the FBI, which we're going to get in later, when they did their own secret search of the property, it stands out. With the information they had from witnesses, they should have had an idea where to search. And in the FBI, when they came out and with their GPS guy, what they did was they took a hand drill with a long bit, and they stuck it into the blacktop, and they drilled down the length of the bit, and then they had a dog come up and sniff for about a minute and say, nothing here. Okay.
Right.
But where they even put the drill was in the middle of the asphalt parking lot, not where they were supposed to put it from the information from the people. And, I mean, if you don't want to find it,
Yeah. I mean, of course, if there's a will, there's a way. And if there's no will, there's no way. And I mean, the bottom line is, we got Travis, who's a friend of the show. We've done all that. We like Travis would like what we're trying to tell people. We have the original GPR scans. We know where the anomalies are. What we're suggesting is we just need to be able to get back on that property. Now, Cook County Sheriff, Bill and I, when we were originally talking about doing this, it was both of our we both felt that we needed to kind of stay under the radar because we didn't want the city of Chicago and or Cook County Sheriff or Chicago Police interfering with what we're trying to do. So, what our challenge is now is we're going to conduct this dig, but we have to get the property owner to approve of it. And that's where I'm going to come in, and I'm going to sit down with him, and I'm going to appeal to his nature as a human being. And I'm going to appeal to his nature as a good person who will very easily be, I think, persuaded into allowing us to do this because, number one, we're not talking about having to destroy the interior of the property. This isn't a Gacy house dig, albeit I certainly would like to dig around in there a little bit. But, like that would come if we get to do what we want to do and we think we're going to find what we think we're going to find. All of that will force law enforcement's hands. They will have no choice but to do a thorough examination of the entire property. And, if the bottom line is when we find bones, if and when we find bones, we're going to have to let them know, immediately.
And the thing is too, the police don't know what we know. We have information, significant quality information from other people about other locations.
That's right.
And we're going to have the ability to do that without law enforcement knowing.
Right. Exactly.
And so we're going to get that done too.
Yeah. And this is like the most open and notorious property. Like that,
right.
Other properties that we know about, people do not know about. This is just the one that I think will probably be the easiest. It's going to take some money, I think, in order to convince this guy to allow us to do the dig and then to make whatever repairs are necessary in terms of filling in and resodding. Now, the biggest question becomes if they find bodies on the property, what does that do to this? Like his pushback, the only pushback I could see him coming at me with is, what's it going to do to the property value? Like if they find bodies here, is it going to destroy my property value? I don't think it does. Assuming that it stays in the yard and then knowing kind of the legend of Gacy, as horrible of a legend it is, it's a legend nonetheless. I happen to think that it would actually raise the property value. It's not a situation like Gacy's house, which they demolished. They still, right. They just sold it recently. They obviously a new house has been built on that land, but certainly people that get that poltergeist vibe, that vibe going, in terms of like, oh man, I don't want to own a property that, there were dead bodies buried. Well, the fact of the matter is we have no idea where indigenous people are probably buried all over the place under the land because we just came over and slaughtered them. So, I'm not concerned about that side of it. And it's really the only pushback that I can anticipate that he would have in terms of approaching him. And I think that if I can appeal, like I said, to his better nature, and frankly, he becomes the hero of the story. You know, he's the solid citizen, the good person that allowed us to do this, to get these victims' families closure and to get these victims their names back, man. And like, that's a hard thing to turn down if you're a decent human being.
And we're not going to that property with a backhoe either, you know.
No, right.
Right. So, but I mean, even Gacy's house was torn down and that property was sold, and they built another house on that property, the very property where 29 bodies were found, you know. So it's sellable, you know what I can tell you.
Definitely sellable, man. It's definitely sellable. And I don't think it'll affect the property values at all, to be honest with you. If anything, you know, the guy will probably sign some kind of contract with Netflix or something, you know, who knows. But, you know, the bottom line is you've just got to hope that he'll want to do the right thing. And there is only one right thing here. I mean, if I owned the property, I wouldn't even charge somebody. I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know, like, dig it up, man. Just make sure you fix the lawn. Like, you know,
and I even offered the previous owners that. I did make an offer to the previous owners. I said, let me, you know, I'll pay for a new fence. I'll pay for the lawn work, everything, but it didn't happen. So, well,
we're going to make it happen. So, all right. Let me see if I don't know if we got any questions. If there's anybody, it's late as hell for you, Bill. Let me see. We got so Joni, I think we answered this question. I mean, we're going to do the dig. You know, we'll probably, like, I want to have an additional scan done because GPR technology is advanced. But we want to get a guy that's really qualified. I mean, there's guys out there that really, you know, and with our old data, we're going to be able to point them to exactly where we need them to scan. But we need to do it where you and I aren't sneaking onto the property. Hoping.
Well, we were ready to get arrested when we did it the last year. We were ready to be arrested. It came to that. But, you know, the thing is, I don't want law enforcement to be in control of who gets hired to do the GPR of that property. I mean, I can tell the story about what happened with the FBI, and I will eventually. Right. All right.
Yeah. No,
and
we don't want. They've had 40 years to do the right thing, 40 plus at this, to do anything really. And they've chosen to turn a blind eye to it. And, you know, whatever. I mean, that's left us in the position where we're going to have to do it ourselves. And we're up to the task. So,
and as we get deeper into this, I'm going to show the connection to accomplices to victims. You know, right? And identify some other accomplices that we believe are involved with Gacy. And like I said, a lot of that information, Bob, is in my book. All right. And yes, you can buy it on Amazon. And I think next week they're doing a promotion on it, so it's even cheaper. But in the back of this book, people, read the letters that come from government. They tell you they did nothing. Okay. Tragic for the families who trusted that government did the right thing. Even the FBI. God. You know.
Yeah.
So
it's you know, and sadly for this city, you know, on a lot of occasions it's kind of par for the course. You know, obviously there's good cops because you were one. You know, so they existed, but of course they chased you out of the country too because you were a good cop. And that's factual. You know, so I don't know. I'm excited to do this with you, man. So like what we'll do, we'll figure out what happened at the beginning of that John Jr.'s interview. And we've got a few more interviews that are super interesting. And these are all just folks. I mean, they have no skin in the game. They have no reason to make up stories. They have nothing to gain from it financially or otherwise. They have no reason to be giving you any information than the truth that they can remember. So it's super compelling, man. And
that's why I wanted people. Yeah, that's why I wanted people to see their actual video interviews, because me telling their story does not have the impact of them telling it. You know, and you're in a courtroom, you understand the value of a good defense or prosecution witness, what they can do to a case, the provability, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you're amazing, Bill. I adore you, man. We'll be back next week. We'll have more interviews. We'll go through them. We'll talk it out, and then we'll keep plowing through the book. And hopefully, my mods, if you guys would be kind enough to drop the link to Bill's book in the chat, that would be great. He'd be very appreciative of that. And everybody who buys the book will be appreciative that they bought it, because it's chock filled with an amazing story and tons of information about just angles on this case that have never been looked at ever. And like these interviews, like you guys just saw interviews that basically nobody on the planet has ever seen. So, you know,
except law enforcement.
Except for law enforcement, right? You know, so make sure you're sharing. We want to get the word out on this thing. It's going to be a big deal. And like I said on the last live, you know, I've got eyes. I know who was here in the beginning. You know, I know who was here supporting this in the beginning. And, you know, like you'll always be OGs with Bill and I if you're here now. So spread the word that this is going on. I think, Bill, I'm going on News Nation again tomorrow night. She was and she's basically the main anchor, you know.
Yeah, I was happy to make that connection with them, Bob, and I couldn't do it last night, but I will be on with them also.
Yeah, and like, so I'm going to go in studio tomorrow. So I'll be in studio. They were so excited about the story that they want me back to talk more about it, because I only got like 5 or 6 minutes. So we're going to start getting some momentum with this, buddy. And you know, we're gonna make this happen in the next 6 months. I'd like to see some digs going down in the spring, is what my goal is. So, but you, my friend, need to go to bed immediately, because it's
I can't. My house is all wired for Christmas. There's lights on 24/7. I can't sleep.
All right, buy a sleep mask, man. Invest a couple bucks in one of those. All right, Bill, you're the best, man. I'll see you next week, buddy.
All right.
Oops, I cut Bill off. All right, y'all. Charmaine, you're amazing. Thank you so much for that super sticker. All right, y'all. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all my amazing mods for doing all the heavy lifting in here. You guys are lifesavers. I adore each and every one of you. Couldn't do this without you. I really couldn't. So I'm super appreciative of the mods. Super appreciative to everybody that has joined membership. I think we had one tonight, Jennifer Johnson. Thank you very much. 2-month membership. It's amazing. And then, you know, again, Charmaine with the $13 hollow, $14 hollow, really. So, all right, y'all. Check me out on News Nation tomorrow. I might try to jump on with Jay tomorrow morning for a bit, because he's streaming that at JBN. He's got a new network, a new channel, because they demonetized him, and y'all should definitely be checking him out over at JBN. Got to get his subs up. Like, they're at 1,000. He had 6,000. I don't know why it didn't automatically go up to $6,000 like right away. Everybody that was at the old one needs to come to the new one. So get busy on that. But I know he's streaming the Young Slime trial. So, which is slow moving, but fascinating in a lot of different ways. And that case is really interesting because it's a RICO case. And if you've never watched a RICO case, they're a lot to take in, because you've got, you know, essentially 5-6 defendants in this case that are all sitting in that courtroom, and all of them have different attorneys. So you've got, you know, because I keep seeing comments coming from Jay's stream, like, man, the state looks like they're getting their ass handed to them. And it makes sense. I mean, you've got basically 6 teams of defense attorneys there. So you got six people or more, including second chairs. So you got, you know, between 10 and 12 brains on the defense side, just ganging up on the state. You know, it's like if one lawyer isn't thinking of an objection, another one will. So there's not going to be much that slips through the cracks from the defense side of it. They're interesting trials to watch, and you can see how difficult RICO cases are to prove. You know, it's like typically you hear about RICO with with mafia cases and outfit cases. So it's unusual for to see them using it in terms of trying to prove that there's, a gang that was out there running rogue. But it's an interesting trial, and more importantly, Jay's awesome and hilarious, and it's a great channel, and he's a great human being, and so is Shannon. So I highly recommend you guys jump over there. Also, my buddy, my dear friend Joe Jackalone was in the chat tonight. He's got an amazing channel. I'm jumping on with him on the 12th. So make sure that you're checking out his channel, and more importantly, subbing, so that you're made aware, because Joe interviews just has fire interviews all the time. And Joe's longtime NYPD detective. So like Joe knows his shit, just like Bill does. Like that's why I want to get these two guys, and I will be getting these two guys together on the show, so we can kind of compare and contrast what's going on with Huerman and what didn't go on with Gacy, because I think a lot of that's getting lost in the translation. That what Bill and I, in terms of, we're not asking law enforcement to do anything because they've refused to do anything. This is Bill and I are doing this ourselves because law enforcement has refused to do it. So that's what's going on. Like, we're boots on the ground, shovels in the ground. Like, we're going to make this thing happen, and nothing's stopping us from doing it. And no one, I would hazard to guess, there aren't two people that know more about this case than Bill and I, especially about the things that law enforcement didn't want anybody to know about. So, we're the right men for the job, and we're going to get it done. So, all right, y'all, thank you for joining, and make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and please share. Sharing gets that algorithm spinning, especially for this. Like, I get huge audiences for the Delphi stuff, which I love. Much smaller audiences for this. I just don't think that people are getting quite what we're doing. And I'm trying to tell you that we're trying to find additional victims, and we think we know where they are. So, spread the word out there, y'all, if you can. And I'll check you on the next one. And I got an awesome new outro from Stevie. So here you go. Catch you later. Thanks for watching, because without you, I'd just be an old man talking about old cases.
Heart